Thank you so much for watching, wherever you happen to be. Now, God love the clickbait media who always talk down to us like the toddlers that we are. These are all better people. Now, as you know, it is rather hot in summer and it is starting to get particularly hot in and around Sydney. So thank goodness for the Sydney Morning Herald, who put a how-to guide out there today about how to keep cool this summer. Now, apparently one of the things to do is to move to a cooler suburb. Just in case, go and get a different mortgage for a couple of months, move to Pennant Hills, Camden Airport, Badgerys Creek, pretty sure there's, anyway, Parramatta North. Or maybe you should go places with air conditioning like cinemas or museums. You should slow down your physical activity so you don't get too hot. And my favourite of all the tips, avoid hot drinks. Thank you very much, Sydney Morning Herald. Where would we be without you? And without that, how would we know to vote for the Teals or not? Speaking of upcoming elections in New South Wales, Rose Jackson's fighting it on the front lines for the Labor Party. Bronwyn Bishop, of course, formerly of the Liberal parish, and a man who couldn't care less because he's in Queensland. He's got to deal with the floods right now and around central Queensland is Matt Canavan. So, Bronwyn, how does it look going into this election? Latest polling seems to suggest it's tipping Labor's way, but obviously things like the poker machines and a real want to win over the Herald and Perrottet trying to sort of announce his way out of it is making it seem perhaps closer than logic would suggest. Is the bloke who wore a Nazi uniform in 2003 going to get re-elected?
Well, look, Paul, I think, quite frankly, that both Labor and the government have come to the conclusion that the outcome will be one of them will be in minority government. If the Labor Party can win 11 seats, it's all over Red Rover. But if they can only win, if they win 5 seats, they'll be in a position to negotiate to try and be a minority government. But that means also that the current government can negotiate to remain in government. So I think it's going to be a very tight race, very tight indeed. With regard to the Teals, there are two things that are different from either Victoria in their state election and the federal election. One, there are caps on how much can be spent, and secondly, there's optional preferential voting, which means that they don't have to distribute preferences, and that by putting a 1 on the box, you'll get an outcome of the person you want. So when you look at them seat by seat, yes, they are tight in so many areas, but to be frank, the Labor Party has more marginal seats to defend and sandbag than the government has. But equally, there are some very marginal seats that the government has. So it'll be tight, it'll be close, and it's going to be fascinating to watch the coming months. But whichever way it goes, I think it'll be a minority government, whether it's Labor or Liberal. Yeah,
our colleague Andrew Connell in Afternoon Agenda, he had some of this internal polling you're seeing on screen today.
As the New South Wales election campaign heats up ahead of the time of the traditional starter's gun, Australia Day, Sky News has obtained some polling done on critical Perrottet government seats late last year. The polling, done in November, shows that the government is behind the 8 ball when it comes to several key seats, but in with the chance of retaining office in a minority situation.
Rose, what is the argument for change here? Obviously, a government that has been there for a long time but has built a lot of stuff. So what is the argument for change?
I just don't think they've got an agenda for this state anymore, Paul. Like they have been in power for 12 years. They're asking for 16. That's a big ask. And, you know, I speak from experience. The last Labor government in this state was there too long. You have to be pretty outstanding, I think, to govern for 12 years, ask the people of this state for 16. And I just don't think they are. I think their best days are behind them. I don't see any new ideas. I don't see any fresh vision for New South Wales. And yeah, I mean, I'm going to say this, but I think Labor has been talking about that. I spent the last week, the first week of January, everyone's on holidays. I'm out there talking about housing policy. Fair enough, no one wants to listen. I get it. But it's about showing we do have something to say. We do have ideas for this state. And I think, after 12 years, it's time for a change. I think they're tired.
Well, we look forward to many a fight between now and March.